All right, guys, it's really, really late in the night, but I just want to spend this short time with you guys talking a little bit about Justice League, the heroes in Justice League. We'll start with Wonder Woman and we'll work our way through. Okay? Let me see what's up here. Okay, cool. This is going to be very short. This is going to be very quick. If you want to comment, you can comment in the comment section, which will be over here on this side. And I'll try and keep track of your comments. But I'm going to be really quick on this one because I'm tired. I need to go to sleep. I'm in sleeping clothes. I'm ready to go in my bed. All right. So this is how it goes. So when we look at Wonder Woman, we talked about Batman already, his arc from BVS to the present time. Wonder Woman's arc is even more elaborate. We get a touch of her in BVS, then we get some more in her own movie, and then we get her a sort of fulfillment of her arc in Justice League. Wonder Woman was never not hopeful for mankind. At the end of Wonder Woman, we see that she's going to fight on for those values that mankind can aspire towards. But what we learn in Justice League, which is kind of deep, is that she hides in the shadows. She does not declare herself to the world. She didn't do like what Superman did. So her discussion with Bruce Wayne, Diana and Bruce Wayne, brings out a truth that she actually was affected by Steve Trevor. And so what she said at the end of BVS, where she said that it was a century of horrors for her. Man made a world that's standing together is not possible. What she said at the end of BVS translates into Justice League, and also we get the aftermath of what happened at the end of Wonder Woman. Now she is reminded of Steve Trevor, and Steve Trevor reminds her of the things which are good in humanity. And that's why when she was speaking to Ares, she said, everything you said was true. Mankind has darkness. But she acknowledges that they are so much more than their dark side. As she saw the inspirational hopefulness in Steve Trevor and desire to see people lives be preserved for the potential that they can do good. Remember, hope is the potential for every person to be a force for good, which Jor-El said to Kal-El. And Wonder Woman, she embraces that, but at the same time, she has apparently had repeated histories in covert operations of people like Steve Trevor dying under her. So she sort of moves to the shadows after Steve Trevor's incident. And this is what she meant by 100 years ago, I walked away from mankind. She was not talking about abandoning them. She was talking about walking away from them. And you can see that bigger picture in Justice League, where basically Bruce Wayne challenges her on that. She's there when she's needed, but she's not there to stand before mankind proudly. She's not there to be that beacon of inspiration. She's not there trying to lead out. She's leaving mankind to sort out their business. She's an observer, and when she's needed, she comes into play. Pretty much we saw that in BVS. She doesn't interfere with mankind's affairs. Unless she's needed, there's a threat, she jumps into the fray. So that's what we saw in BVS. That's why when she says that man made a world where standing together is impossible, she knows what she's saying. She's seen it through 100 years. But yet she assisted Bruce Wayne. She assisted Clark Kent in facing Doomsday. Now, in a way, Bruce Wayne sort of helped out Diana, and in a way, Diana helped out Bruce Wayne in BVS. The relationship between Diana and Bruce Wayne, interestingly enough, they help each other grow. Let me explain what I mean. So Diana obviously knew that Bruce was going to Lex Luthor's place. She was eyeing him out while he was there, and she stole the drive from him. But here's the interesting thing. Bruce, because of his attachment to Diana, gets to learn about metahumans. That metahumans don't necessarily, they can move among us and they're moving among us all the time. But more importantly, they're not necessarily bad. And him trying to stop Superman will not stop them all. The second thing that Diana learns, that Bruce does for Diana, secondly, Bruce does something for Diana. Bruce, in discovering these metahumans, he communicates with Diana because he can find her. He communicates with Diana. And in communicating with her and his discovery of all these other metahumans and that she's a metahuman, she's slowly changing his perspective on metahumans for him. And he is challenging her constantly to come out of the shadows. He doesn't know who she is. So he's like, who are you? And he wanted to know more about her. And he shared with her the stuff that the other metahumans that are on the drive. So Bruce comes to start to have an understanding, okay, metahumans are not necessarily bad. And two, she's coming to have to come out of the shadows. She ends up, so Bruce constantly, the dynamic between Bruce and Diana is Bruce is always challenging Diana to step up her game. And Diana is constantly trying to change the perspective Bruce has, not only of other metahumans, but the perspective he has on life, period. How he interfaces and interrelates with other people. So Diana is constantly doing that. That's the dynamic you'll see carry over into Justice League. All right. Bruce, when Bruce says that help me find the others like you, she says, and if they don't want to be found, and Bruce says, they will want to be found and they will fight. And then he goes on this inspirational speech to Diana. So he's trying to get Diana to step up her game and stand before humanity. And Diana's response is always a compassionate one. She's always thinking about the other person's side and how they feel. And so that conversation continues in Justice League. You can't discuss Diana's story without talking about Bruce's story. Because here's what's happening. Bruce is like Steve Trevor to Diana. He's making her now step up her game. And now instead of just, Steve was trying to show Diana how the world works and that people have goodness in them and that's what you have to fight for. Bruce is stepping it up even further and saying, now you need to lead. Now you need to take the forefront. And he's constantly challenging Diana. At first, he challenged her on the note of pulling this team together because he has a strong conviction that they need to have a team together. He's not a perfect guy. She has sort of convinced him and helped him carry it on to the point where he's now indebted to Superman and he feels he needs to form this team. What she does is she brings the humanity to the equation. So their discussion goes on in Justice League and she says, we're having these people we don't know risk their lives for something they're not fully enlightened about. And Bruce says that's how this works. So Bruce is leading, but Diana is also helping him. She's supportive. She's constantly finding him. Remember, in Batman v Superman, she found him. In Justice League, she found him again. Now, here's the interesting thing. When we look at Diana in Wonder Woman, Steve Trevor finds Diana. Well, Diana actually finds Steve. This seems to be a repeated theme in the psychology of Diana. Diana is always coming out and rescuing someone. And she found Steve and she rescued him. She found Bruce and she rescued him mentally as well as physically. And it's very interesting that if you look at Diana, she's always coming into the equation when she's needed. Now, in Wonder Woman, Diana, let me just check your feedback because some of you probably popped up at this point in time. Yep, here's Vegathon. I heard a Zack Snyder cut exists. No, there's no Zack Snyder cut. Vegathon, did you watch the Infinity War trailer? I glimpsed it. I wasn't impressed. Megathon, do you think Batman will ever initiate the protocols to take down the Justice League or create these files? I don't know. I'm really not thinking that far down the road. First, Justice League needs to do well in the cinemas. Megathon, is metahumans a term they can only use in DC materials? No, I guess they can use it in other materials, but I think Marvel uses Inhumans. They don't use metahumans. It's just a term for superpowered beings, also known as superheroes for some and supervillains for others. Right? And you don't have to be, of course, a metahuman to be a supervillain, but I'm just saying. Okay, so back to what I was saying here, because I think this is the meat of the story and it can translate into everyday life, which is why I talk about these things. So I don't know how much time I have left, but basically Diana and Bruce, their relationship continues in Justice League, but it's informed by Diana's relationship with Steve Trevor. And you'll notice Steve Trevor is brought up a couple times. And so Diana saved Steve Trevor, but Steve Trevor also saved Diana. He was able to show her that mankind is not as naive, but in spite of the darkness of mankind, it's still worth helping them. So that's the kind of story that unwinds there. And you will notice that Bruce is also helping Diana in terms of stepping up to the plate and being a leader in the foreground. And her fears that carried over from Wonder Woman was that she takes on this leadership position, which she was unafraid to do in Wonder Woman. She stepped up and went across no man's land when Steve Trevor was saying it wasn't possible. She stepped up and went and did it. She gets it done, right? But the leader that she was, because she was leading, she led basically in almost every respect, and she was correct about stopping Ludendorff and stopping him and killing him. Steve Trevor realized he was wrong. She stepped up to the plate, but in stepping up to the plate to finally clash with Ares, Steve dies. Now, Steve was committing a sacrifice. He sacrificed his life for a cause. And we see that Batman is trying to do the very same thing. Batman twice sacrificed his life for a cause, but he still lived. The first time was against Superman, where Diana again tried to protect Bruce. Almost every time she's trying to protect him. It's almost a Diana Steve Trevor dynamic going on here. Except Bruce can really handle his stories. Kal-El, after he flings aside all the members of the Justice League and the Flash has been disposed of, he sees Bruce and he says, "I know you." And Diana jumps in the way of Kal-El to protect Bruce. So you see a continuity of this dynamic she has of protecting humans. Steve Trevor was the first one. I'm sure there's a successive set of others that will come up in Wonder Woman sequels once this Justice League movie does well at the box office. And here she is now protecting another human from a god. And she does not address Clark as Clark. She addresses him as Kal-El. Notice she spoke to Kal-El's spirit, his soul, for a minute. And he also reflected on it. We'll get into all of that in a minute. But suffice it to say that Diana, she continually tries to protect Bruce. She's continually like Bruce's older sister or protector. And she tries to protect Bruce. She fails. And Bruce is in a position where his life is about to be lost. But he has a backup plan. And Bruce would have died. That was the first time. The second time was when Bruce decided he knew he couldn't engage Steppenwolf, so he decided to create a distraction, break down the shield so they could get in, and then distract the parademons away from them so they could go in and attack Steppenwolf and give them the best chance possible. The problem with that was there's a lot of parademons, so they would take you out if you tried to fight them up by your own. And Alfred realizes it's a miscalculation, and he says that. But Bruce is on a suicidal mission. He doesn't mind dying. And you can see he has all the fight in him when the parademons start to rip the car apart. But again, Diana comes in and saves his life. So he's a Steve Trevor. He's so committed to the task at hand. He does not mind losing his life because he believes Superman's in the world. He can give them hope. taking down Steppenwolf is the key here. And yes, Bruce Wayne is a little suicidal, but Diana has seen this before. She's probably seen this multiple times before since Steve Trevor. And so she knows that she can deal with this. And she instead makes the decision. She overrides everybody. Aquaman wanted to go fight Steppenwolf. She overrides everyone, and she fights the parademons to protect Bruce. And this is Diana's nature. But more interestingly enough, we see a progression of Diana stepping up to the plate and embracing leadership when she realizes what the stakes are involved. And she knew Bruce was somewhat suicidal, and Bruce was. Now, what's interesting about her story and her dynamic that comes to full circle is she finally embraces that she must lead. And then sometimes people's lives are lost in the process. And she comes out of the shadows at the end, but the pivotal moment where she comes out of the shadows is actually precursed by Bruce's argument with her, where he touches on the subject of Steve Trevor. And that really triggers that violent reaction from her. And he's pushing her to the limit. She doesn't kill him, obviously, but he pushes her to the limit. And she comes back because she has that affection. She has that desire, that capacity to feel for other people. She comes back after seeing him get his butt handed to him with Superman, and Superman almost killed him. She comes back to assist him and help him. And he's a tough guy, you know, he takes his injuries and so on. And that conversation she has with him literally helps her to step up to the plate. She says, you know, it was my business to deal with Steppenwolf, and I abdicated my responsibility. And truly, it was her responsibility because Hippolyta had sent the fire for her to know. And instead, she went by Bruce. But in her going by Bruce, it actually helped the situation because now they could work together to form a team. But suffice it to say, she realized it was her responsibility. And she has abdicated that responsibility, at least to lead out a team. She abdicated it for a long period of time. Even though she's a natural leader, she has all the tenets to be a great leader. She's inspirational. She can touch people's hearts. And she can kick ass, and she knows how to fight, and she knows fighting strategy. So she was really the person who should have led the team from the get-go, but it was Bruce carrying the load. But we now know it's because of a fear of loss. And so we've seen all these heroes, from Batman dealing with loss, how he dealt with loss, Superman, how he dealt with loss, his father, his mother, his father, his stepfather, and his true mother. How he deals with loss, how he deals with his identity. Batman coming into his identity and gaining Bruce Wayne, and now Wonder Woman coming into her identity as an icon, as a figure, as a symbol, a loving symbol that's not afraid to be out there and lead, coming into that identity, the fullness of Wonder Woman. So we watched that these three figures, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, evolve into the heroes we know. But their journey is important because that's what makes what they symbolize real. And that's what Zack Snyder was working on. I also like the subtle dimension to Wonder Woman, where she, in this movie, actually has some issues with, hold on one second, let me just check you guys here in the comment section before I shut down. Because I'm about to shut down, guys, in a minute. Ole JL. Hey, Ole in New York. Hi, Millie Rock. Vegathon says, is it upsetting that a sequel to Justice League won't make it for another 4 or 5 years? Because I'm deeply sad by this. Well, it depends. It depends. The reception of this movie so far has not been great. So it depends on how the reception of the movie pans out over the next couple of weeks. It's still not doing too well at the box office, in my opinion, especially in the United States of America. Internationally, it's not doing bad. But because of all this negative press and negative media that's taken away from the substance of the movie, which I'm discussing right now, you find that it is affecting box office. But like I said before to you guys, I'm working hard at putting out positive things. It's up to you guys to share this information and keep it positive, because this movie has a lot to offer to a lot of people, and especially the coming together of people from different backgrounds. It's very important. We listen to one another. We don't have to agree on everything. In fact, we don't have to agree at all on anything, but we must come together and dialogue. And once we keep things in a dialogue, we'll be okay. Do you see Diana dating Clark or Bruce? Vega Thorne, I think if anything, she may end up with Bruce, because Bruce has a lot in common with Steve Trevor, which is what I'm discussing right now. Vega Thorne, is it possible Steve Trevor is alive? Because there's a rumor floating around. No, he's not. He's dead. Vega Thorne, did you think Steppenwolf was a good villain? Absolutely. Absolutely. He was a great villain. It's a fantastic villain. Very powerful. Very difficult. The Justice League couldn't take him down. It was Superman that made the difference. Otherwise, they would have had difficulty with him. And he's smart and he's tactical, and he came off the grid. They had to find him. So no, they just so happened they had enough people and resources and team, and they started working together. That kind of really increased their chances. I mean, as the fight went on and Superman had weakened up Steppenwolf a bit, Aquaman started to get the upper hand. He started to work with Wonder Woman. It was the three most powerful members of the team: Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. They started tag teaming Steppenwolf. And that's how they started to really take him down. I mean, Superman probably could have taken him down by himself, but he started tag teaming with Wonder Woman and Aquaman. You remember when Wonder Woman, basically Aquaman punched him. He speed punched him. Pow! Then Wonder Woman hit him with her powers, that repelling power, that energy power. And Superman punched him back down on the ground, hit him with the X-ray vision. Sorry, not X-ray, heat vision. He hit him with the heat vision, and it threw him like a rag doll. You know what I'm saying? And then he ran into help with Cyborg, because Cyborg was trying to separate the mother boxes. So yeah, Superman made a big difference in that fight. If it wasn't for Superman there, they'd have lost that fight. They'd have lost that fight to Steppenwolf. He would have terraformed the Earth. Yeah. But Superman came in just at the right time. And Steppenwolf is no punk, but I think because people saw Superman handle Steppenwolf so easily, not understanding this is an enhanced, more powerful Superman, they think that he's a punk, but he's not. Vega Thorne, Superman seemed like he made the difference in the final. Absolutely. He made a huge difference in that fight. He turned the fight completely around because they were about to get beat bad. Batman could do nothing. Cyborg was ripped in half. Wonder Woman and Aquaman, they had just come out from under the rocks, and Steppenwolf was in position with the mother boxes. So they wouldn't have won. Steppenwolf had the higher ground as well. None of them could fly. So you know what's going to happen, which is interesting. Wonder Woman couldn't fly either. So that was an interesting point as well. Anyway, guys, I want to wrap this up as quickly as possible. I was just here to talk about the character development. I think I'll stop at Wonder Woman, but suffice it to say that Wonder Woman, fantastic character development with her. And psychologically, it's interesting to talk about her, because Wonder Woman represents the caring people in the world. But most caring people in the world, they don't want to step out in the forefront and be subject to ridicule and assaults. And they don't want people who are close to them, who they love, being targets either. And so Wonder Woman represents those warm, loving people in the world. Those are the superheroes. And they're usually bashful and shy. And that's pretty much Wonder Woman. She's all about the job, the task at hand, and then she goes back into the shadows. And you could see it in the movie where they asked her how her weekend was, and she said, it wasn't very interesting. And she was wreaking havoc there. She really beat up those terrorists and probably killed one or two of them. But she wouldn't talk about that. No, that was a very lit scene. I've been watching that scene a couple of times. I need to really go back in the theater and see that scene. It's just there's so much to this movie that's just so awesome. I mean, oh my gosh. I got to go back and see this movie again, a sixth and seventh time. But anyway, thanks guys for coming through. Thanks for your comments and your statements. Oli JL, Vega Thorne, it's nice to see you guys here. And we'll have another hangout soon, but I need to go and work. I've been sort of away from work for a while now. I need to shave my beard, get my hair cut, and get back on the job. But I just wanted to talk this because I was so enthusiastic with you guys to talk about these heroes. We'll try and wrap up on Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash. I didn't get to talk everything about Wonder Woman that I wanted to, but we'll talk on Packer a little bit later. Cyborg, you know what his story is. He was in fear about what he is, what he represents, who he is. Uh, when you have another entity in you, which he speaks about, a living machine that you're basically symbiotically having a relationship with, that's crazy. You don't know what you're going to do next. You don't know what your potential is. You don't know what you're going to evolve into next. Cyborg's constantly evolving. So I thought they captured Cyborg so well, the essence of Cyborg. Now, there's a lot of people talking about all this additional footage that was missing from the film and this and that, and it was chopped. And listen, man, we had plenty story, and it would have been nice to have a Zack Snyder cut with a lot more, 3 hours of this thing. But I think it's just the right length for the average casual person, and they get the characters. You know, they get the characters. The Flash, his father was allegedly killed his mother, and he's trying to show that his father's innocent. And you can see the rift, the emotional dissonance, because the father's saying, I'm not going anywhere, son. Don't let your life stand on hold for me. How many of us have had some disaster in your life where your life stands still because of that disaster, whether it's a parent died or broken relationship and you're waiting on that other person? You're trying to hang in there and hope for the best because someone, a loved one, is very, very ill and your life's on hold. And that story psychologically is dealing with real people. It's real things we deal with. It makes the news sometimes. So it was beautiful when his father said, you know, this guy is going nowhere. Now, some people say that should have been cut from the movie. And I'm like, no, because you need to have the emotional bearing to invest in these characters. You need to know where they're coming from. So absolutely, these were key scenes in the movie. So the Flash, we see where he comes from. And all the beginning of the film is dark because we need to see the darkness and to see, in spite of that darkness, these people somehow found a way to talk with one another, behave with one another, and do extraordinary things. And they always had the potential. And so that's what's important about this movie that separates it from other superhero movies I've seen, Avengers and so on, Iron Man, so on. Because Iron Man never really experienced darkness, you know. Captain America never really experienced dark. Okay, yes, he had a dark childhood in the sense that he was beaten up a lot, but he still had that inherent tendency within him. These guys are finding their way in the world, and that's more realistic because most of us in this world are trying to find our way and be and express ourselves in a unique way that helps in forming teams. Team building is not always ideal. It's not always the perfect way. And it's not just about people you know who are like you. So people are talking about deleted scenes. I would prefer, if I were a discreet person, a sensible person, I wouldn't leak footage that WB has. And WB has the right to sue these people who are leaking footage of additional and deleted scenes because those scenes could easily be put in their DVDs and Blu-rays. And I feel these people are sabotaging WB more than anything else. And if you're working for a company, they bought the rights to the characters, they're the ones in charge. You shouldn't be somebody outing them like that. In fact, what happens in WB should stay in WB. And it shows that there are people who are literally detractors of this movie trying to get it to fail. And there are actually moles inside of WB doing that. And that's not right. And so if this movie was doing well in box office, this sort of information would not be a problem. But you can't have a movie which has to overcome critical reception. It has to overcome people who have this blurred vision of it. And then on top of that, it was a movie that both DC and Marvel fans liked. So why are you trying to highlight negative things about this movie and create all this controversy around it so that it would fail at the box office? So I don't buy into that, and I don't think that's a good thing. And I'm not going to engage in those discussions anymore. I'm going to talk about the merits this movie had and why I like it so much. That's what I'm going to spend my time on, because I think this movie has a lot of value, just like Wonder Woman had value that just like BBS had value and Man of Steel had value to translate into your everyday lives. That's what my discussions are going to be on, and not on this nonsense, this gossip nonsense, which really is not going to benefit anyone. And in fact, it is destructive. So when we look at these characters, we look at Cyborg, who has his identity crisis and also fears because of that, what he has become. When we look at, and he thinks of his father as a monster, because why would his father not allow him to die instead of bring him back as this thing? And he talks about his gifts as paying for them. Then we have the Flash, who, as I said before, he has a ridiculously horrific past, in the sense of, you know, your father's going to prison for killing your mother, and he's trying to redeem his father. Then we have Aquaman, and Aquaman is interesting in that he's in this village, this outsider village on the edge of almost nowhere, and he's got this world where people want to tell him what to do, which is Atlantis, and he's got this Earth world which he doesn't really particularly like. And so he's kind of caught in between these two worlds. And we didn't get to see where he actually lived with his father. But suffice it to say, here he is on the edge of humanity. All of these characters we're speaking about, whether it's Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, right? Who did I leave out? The Flash. Each one of them feels like they can't fit in. You hear the Flash speaking about how it's difficult to speak with people because they're so slow. You have Cyborg, who does not know what he is. He's not even mixing with society, okay? And he's hiding that mother box. He's not going to let his father take that thing and do some more madness. Because his father's like Frankenstein. He's like this crazy, mad scientist. Then we have Aquaman, who is an outsider, period. Batman, who he's also an outsider. And he is going to have a hard time forming relationships because he hasn't been trying to have relationships with anyone but except for Alfred for the longest while. And Wonder Woman, who's an outsider, she hides in the shadows. And then Superman, who was an outsider, because some people loved him, some people hated him. He put himself out there, though. And only a few people actually identified with him. He's easily misunderstood. And so he was also an outsider. But you see, when Superman comes back on the scene, he actually brings a whole fresh piece of hope. And like I said, it was the night time when they brought in the body of Superman. By the time he was resurrected, it was day. It was coming to morning. And we saw the sunrise when he was on the Kent farm with Lois Lane. So I thought there was we haven't talked about the side characters, Jim Gordon, Lois Lane, Martha Kent, who are in this movie. We have to talk about those guys as well. But yes, Batman did have a sort of relationship, is a distant relationship with Jim Gordon. He would dialogue with Jim Gordon on a need to know basis. But Jim Gordon did know him well enough that he knew that Batman didn't do those things, even though the description of the assailant that was kidnapping people seemed to fit Batman's description, as we saw in the movie. So that was very interesting. Yes, Jim Gordon going and speaking with Batman. I love that relationship between Jim Gordon and Batman because Batman is not particularly genteel with Jim Gordon. He just disappears on Jim Gordon when he wants to. And it was kind of a interesting thing to see the whole league go with Batman and just disappear. And because Flash was looking where Jim Gordon was looking, he didn't get the cue and he didn't know that they were gone, you know. And it's so funny because it shows you how similar these different members of the Justice League are. Cyborg moving quietly. Wonder Woman moves quietly. Batman moves quietly. Of course, the Flash tries to move quietly, but in this case, he didn't get the memo, and they're all gone, you know. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys. I think I more than overspent my time here. I hope you guys enjoy this. Don't forget to share these videos. Share as much positive energy as you can. Remember, in a hopeful spirit and in hopefulness, and remember, I'm a Batman character, so I don't really encourage people that launch back and break down, very analytical. But when we get Superman, it'll be cool. But from now on, I'm Batman. I would love to be Cyborg, but I'm really a Batman. I would like to know which character you think you are, Vega Thorn, and which character do you think you are, Oli JL. Maybe you'll tell me in the next video, or you can put it in the comment section below. You guys have a great one.